What's going on, everybody? My name's Terrell Williams and welcome back to another landscape photography video. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you guys through a trip I just took to New York City where I tried a new technique to photograph some buildings and do some architecture photography. So I'm going to be showing you guys what my thought process was and how I picked my compositions, and then also the technique that I used in post-processing to get a look that you don't really see often, and I actually really enjoyed how some of the photos turned out. So yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. All right, so we are out here on the High Line. We just found a nice vantage point where we see some nice patterns in the buildings. So I'm gonna zoom in and see what I can find. I'm also gonna turn my f-stop down a little bit because we're just a little bit overexposed. So now you can see what I'm looking at here, and I like how that diagonal line comes through the photo. So yeah, this will be our first couple of shots. Let's see what we get. So with these first couple of images, you can see that there's something not quite right visually to these images, and that's actually because of an editing technique that I used where you straighten the vertical lines so that they're actually straight on your image. And what I mean by that is when I took the photos, I'm looking up in my camera at the windows on the buildings. So you're gonna have a bit of a distorted effect because the vertical lines of the buildings kind of look like they're pointed upwards at a point. So when I loaded this picture into Lightroom, I had to take those vertical lines and move them out and straighten them up. So you can see with these pictures that they look really squared off, but something about it, your eye is telling you that there's something different, there's something off. And so I actually really like this look. But these frames were kind of simple. So in my next composition, I'm gonna try and get a little creative and create something that's a little bit more visually appealing. So let's check that out. All right, so found another vantage point here. You can see the vessel. And then what I really like about this is how it's split 50-50 between the vessel and this building with some really cool windows on the side. So actually, if I just zoom in here, adjust my frame a little bit, we get a really cool composition with some competing patterns that I really like. So let's see what we can get. So as you can see from these last couple of images, I really wanted to take the idea that I started with at my first location and add some more visual interest to the frame. So I really like this image where I split the frame 50-50 between the vessel on the left side and this building with the really cool windows on the right side. And I think it creates a really interesting contrast between the two sides of the frame, because you have the really smoothed out reflections in the windows on the right side and a very jagged and much more structured piece on the left side with the vessel. So I thought it created a really nice 50-50 between the frame. I also really liked just isolating the reflections on the windows on this building. So with this photo here, I really wanted to just focus in and isolate the windows and isolate the clouds in the reflection. And again, I use this technique where I straighten the vertical lines, and I think it just creates a really cool visual effect that brings more of the attention to the abstract feeling of this building. So I really liked that. All right, so I'm at one more spot before we get into more of the greenery of the High Line here, but something that I found that caught my eye was the reflection here of the building behind me in these windows. And so I really like how the windows kind of morph what I'm looking at. And so I'm gonna see what I can get, and I'm already envisioning flattening this out into more of a squared off image. So yeah, let's see what we can do. All right, so firstly, I just want to say I know the audio is not so good in some of these clips. It was really windy, and yeah, please bear with me as I try to figure out how to record audio on location so that it comes through well in these videos. So I'm trying my best, but yeah, it's difficult sometimes. But anyways, I wasn't able to get a photo that I was happy with using the reflections from these windows, but I did still want to focus on this building because it has some really interesting angles, and I liked how it looked like a pillow almost. So I decided to move on from the reflections of the windows and just focus on the building itself, and I got this picture that I'm really happy with. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I really like how this image turned out, and I just thought it was a really interesting building, and I tried a couple of different angles to show it off the best. And I think that's something that's really important, that you can find some things that are really interesting, but the first angle and the first composition that you try to make with it might not be the best one. So it's important to slow yourself down, try a couple different angles and a couple different compositions so that you have some options to work with and you can come away with something that you really like. All right, so I just found this really cool building that kind of creates some leading lines that flows back down the street. So I'm gonna see what I can do with it. Might try a couple horizontal, a couple vertical, and just see what I think works the best. Alright, so this is kind of like the situation I was just talking about, where you come across a scene, or in this case a building, that you might find really cool in person, but when you try and make it look good on the camera or find a composition that works, you just can't get the same effect as seeing it with your eyes. And that's okay, that's gonna happen sometimes. So I got these two photos and, you know, they were all right, but I couldn't really find something with the angle that I was at on the High Line that would work well with this building. So I just decided to keep it pushing and try and find something else. And I came across this apartment complex, and I really liked how the windows were like jutted out of the building, and it had this really cool 3D effect. And so I knew I wanted to use that same effect, the same technique that I've been talking about previously. So I set up my tripod and I took this picture that I'm really happy with. So at this point, I was getting to the end of the High Line and it was starting to get dark, but I'd gotten a lot of photos that I knew that I would be happy with and that I would be able to apply this vertical line technique to. So I just decided to freelance a little bit and look around for some scenes that caught my eye. And I ended up finding this biker that was waiting at a red light, and I decided to set my tripod up and do some long exposure of the cars going past as the biker was sitting and waiting to go. And here's what I shot. And again, because I was kind of at the end of my shoot, I just looked around, tried to find some things that caught my eye, and I could actually see the moon in the sky because it was getting dark enough. And so I went and found this really interesting composition, and here's what I shot. yeah, with that, I got off the High Line because it closes when the sun sets. And I went back over to the vessel and tried to find some interesting compositions in the buildings again. And yeah, enough of me talking. Here's what I shot. So I really like this first image, and you can see that it's kind of become a theme with this photo shoot that I like having a 50-50 contrast in my images, and this picture is no different. So on the left side, you'll see that this building kind of acts as the shadows, the darker image with all the lights off, and then on the right side, you have this punchier, sharper, bright building. So it just creates a really nice contrast between the left and right sides of the images. So what we're going to do now is actually jump into Lightroom so that I can show you what exactly I mean by straightening the vertical lines. So we're going to go to our Develop tab over here. And if you scroll down, I'm already there now. But if we start up at the top, these are your basic editing tools. You'll just drag down to the bottom where it says Transform. Now, Transform has some automatic options for you already, so you can see auto, guided, level, vertical, and full. I find that those work better when you only have a couple of lines to straighten in your photo, but for a photo like this where there are a ton of lines, it can be really hard for the software to understand what lines you're trying to straighten. So you're gonna have to do it manually. And to do it manually, you're just gonna click on this grid icon here, which will allow you to go over and actually select your own lines that need to be straightened. So you're just gonna select a point at the top of the line and drag down to the bottom of the line and release. So that creates one point that the software needs to straighten. And then you'll go to the other side of your image and do the exact same thing. So we're going to drag down to the bottom of this line that needs straightened and release. And you can see that the software will then straighten your vertical lines so that they're exactly straight up and down in your image. And so what this does is it creates a really cool distorted look that you don't see in a lot of landscape or architecture photos. So yeah, now you have a new tool to add to your bag and just kind of create a unique image that you don't see often. And I find this change to be really cool and to, yeah, just make the photo stand out a little bit and add a little bit of visual confusion that just adds interest to your photos as well. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video and you were able to learn something about architecture photography and then also about editing your architecture photos to make them stand out and look a little bit different than some of the other images that you'll see out there. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel so that you can keep up to date with more of the videos that I post in the future. And yeah, my name's Terrell Williams, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.